Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hi, I'm Town Supervisor Paula Mahan, and welcome to Colonie Connect. On today's show, we'll be focusing on planning and economic development in our town. And it's my pleasure to introduce our special guest today, Joe LaCivita, our Director of Planning and Economic Development, and Jean Donovan, our Chairperson for our Planning Board. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have a big issue here to talk about today. Planning is pretty popular in the town of Colonie. We get a lot of questions on a daily basis about new developments that are coming into our town. Can we have this in our town and that in our town? So it always generates a lot of interesting discussion. So I thought it would be really great to have you both here today so we could get into it a little bit more and kind of give our audience an overview of our planning and economic development program in the town. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, Joe, can you tell us a little background about yourself?
Sure. Before that, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to serve both you and the administration as well as the residents of the town of Colonie. I was very delighted when asked to come on board. And as far as my experience goes, I worked for the state of New York for the Economic Development Department there. But prior to that, was able to be moved around through various departments within the state. We set up the Governor's Office for Small Cities, which we will hope have an impact to the town, or at least the bordering municipalities. We also set up the NISTAR, which was the Science, Technology, and Academic Research, and also the Public Security Office. So hopefully I come to the town with a little bit of knowledge that we could actually get things moving.
That's, yes, you have a very diversified background, and I think that's one of the things that was so very attractive when we were looking at this position, because you just bring so many strengths to the department, and we really appreciate that. And also, Jean, you've been involved in the town for a long time, as well as being our new planning board chairperson. You served for many years as zoning board chairperson, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So maybe you could give us a little history about that.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was brought into town government back in 1978, which is 30 years ago now. And I was brought in with Fred Field, who I was placed on the zoning board as a member. I served there maybe a year and a half, and then went to the planning board. And then Mr. Field, the supervisor Field, asked me if I would go back and chair the zoning board, which I did for a number of years through 2006. And now I'm back here serving your administration. I'm very proud. Thank you.
And what would you say, being in both positions, you've served for many years as zoning board chairperson, and now on the planning board, they both play a critical role in the planning process.
Yes.
But what are the major differences between the two?
Well, the zoning law is, of course, more structured, and we have state guidelines in determining our decisions. Applicants have to meet certain criteria to get a use variance and certain criteria to get area variances on zoning. Planning is a whole different ball game for us, and it's I think it's a little more subjective in the way we can deal with projects. So it's quite interesting. It's quite different, and it's a challenge. I'm delighted to be part of it.
Well, as with Joe, we're really pleased that you bring the diversity to the position as well.
I'm delighted to be here.
So we're looking forward to continued economic growth in the town of Colonie. What would you say? We have a pretty good background. We've all been around the town for a very long time. What would you see as one of the major strengths when looking from the perspective of planning and economic development? What would be one of the town's biggest strengths?
Well, I think one of the biggest strengths that I see, I know we all talk about the school system and the low tax base. I mean, we've always heard that for a period of time, but I think one of the things that I see as one of the given strengths that I'm trying to market is the geographic location of the town. I mean, within a couple hours travel, you could be anywhere from mountains to ocean to anything that you really want. You could be down in New York City to see a play. So we really have a geographic area that we could market very, very well and hopefully attract new business along the way.
Okay. And we've had, just in the short period of time we've been working together, we've had a number of projects that have come before the board, and in general to just kind of give us some overviews and major discussions as to what these new developments could bring to our town. Is there any project in particular that we just passed or is in the stages of going through the planning process that you find is rather interesting?
Well, we have a number right now based on the new laws that we've passed and the comprehensive plan that's come into play now. We're starting to see a lot of new exciting developments, because one of the things actually that concerns me within the town is that we have an aging population, and that's nationwide. I mean, that's something we just can't get away from. People are living longer, which is a wonderful thing. We don't really have a home stock that actually could the older residents of this town can move to. And what also is concerning to me is that the children of this township don't have a place that they could live into and grow into. We vacation in Martha's Vineyard every year, and we know that's one of the biggest problems that we've seen over the past 20 years is people living on that island can't afford to live there anymore. And that's one thing we wouldn't want to see happening here to our own kids, not to be afforded the ability to live within the township they've grown into. So those are the type of things that I start to look at when I see some of these plans coming in, this whole new urbanism style. They're bringing almost a city feel to the suburbs, and there's been a number of exciting plans that come to us for concept so far, but they haven't gone to Gene's side of it for the concept planning. So we're excited. We're hopeful that these things come to fruition and start to see some changes coming.
And I get a lot of discussion based around the changing population in the town, and so many people as they retire or whatever, they're still so very active, and so I get a lot of calls and requests for affordable houses to downsize in, but places where there's some walkways, pathways, places to ride your bike, things like that. Hear a lot more talk about the riverfront and being able to use that in more of a recreation way, as well as a passive environment. Things that we have available to us as resources of the town that along the way maybe we just didn't think about it in those terms, but as we go into different stages in our lives, we do start to think about those things, and it is nice to be able to walk out your door and be able to take a walk, and when we talk about mixed use and urban type settings, this is kind of unique. The town of Colonie is kind of unique in a sense that, number one, it's so large, and number two, it still is a suburban town. It has a suburban feel to it. We have some wonderful places in our town that add to that suburban feel or country feel. We have Siena College, which is just a beautiful setting. We have our crossings, which is passive in the middle of a very busy area. So we have the Mohawk River, as we just talked about. We have all of these areas, the bike trail, the town park, beautiful places for our kids to play ball or soccer or whatever. But yet we have all the conveniences that you would have in a major city. So there is that population of people that are going back to wanting to live in apartment style with be able to just walk down the street and have a cup of coffee or whatever. But then again, we do have, as you say, the aging population that just wants a downsize and more of a community type feel that they could walk around and get around. So we're trying to meet everyone's needs, and as all the projects come before our boards, these are all the things that we take into consideration. We look at the populations, the diversity in the populations. We look at the economy, and we still have an extremely strong economy in Colonie. People want to move here. People want to develop here. So that's great. Even in our trying times with our deficit, we still have a strong economy and desire to move here. And you mentioned three major reasons. One, our location. It's just very accessible in any direction to major cities, wherever we need to go. The other is our taxes are very, very good here in the town. And the third reason is they don't belong to us, but we're just fortunate enough to have wonderful school districts in our town, as well as higher levels of education. So we have things here that a lot of communities just haven't been afforded those same resources. So that's good for us.
Absolutely, and I think one of the other things that I've noticed coming from the state level is we have a very dedicated workforce as well.
Yes.
And that also shows in the services that they provide. I'm very proud to work with the people in my department, and actually in that entire Public Works and Public Operations Center. I come in sometimes early in the morning and I leave sometimes late at night, and there's still lights on. You don't find that in public service like that, especially even, like I said, at the state level. So we are very fortunate to have the dedicated employees that we have, and that certainly shows when it comes to the Development Coordination Committee meetings that we attend on occasions. These guys bring a wealth of knowledge to the table to talk about the plans, to talk about the impacts that developers are bringing into the infrastructure and so on. So I'm very pleased to work with a very dedicated group.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
and you bring up a really good point because when we go into the new stores or the new development or whatever, we see the beautiful buildings or the items that we're looking for, but we forget about the other part, and that is, needs the water, it needs sewers, it needs the roadways and the correct traffic patterns, all of those things that come into play, and all of our employees do a very nice job, a really nice job in that area. So it has an impact on everything, our police protection, our EMS protection, and providing jobs for people, places for our students to have internships, and it is laying the foundation and being proactive whenever we look at any development. As you've mentioned, we have to start thinking about the future generations as well, and what are we going to leave them, because that's very important to me, and I'm as it is to both of you. But there's just so much happening in planning and economic development between that department and all of the departments that belong to Public Works. I've just learned an unbelievable amount in 2.5 months. Things that I never dreamed I'd be talking about, but it's certainly interesting. And I know one of the things that Jean and I have talked a lot about with everyone else in the planning department, and that is increasing the collaboration between the planning board and the planning department, okay? Because the planning board meets in the evenings every other week, and the planning department, you're employed on a daily basis, and all of these things that come through your department interact with the planning board and often the zoning board. So it's important to have consistent collaboration so everyone's on the same page and any interventions are made at the right times. It just makes the process more efficient and cost effective, and you get a better product in the end. So how are things going on that end as far as interacting with the actual planning department?
Very well. What we have done is we've asked them to take a more active part in our public hearings. And I think that's worked out well. I think your staff, what I've seen, they enjoy doing that. They have an interaction with the public as we do and with the developer, and they bring out some important points that DPW or Latham Water or Pure Waters may have. They bring those to the table at the meeting so that we can discuss them. Everything's not in writing form now. It's written form. It's in a discussion mode so that the public can take part, the developer can take part, the planning department can take part, and the planning board can take part. And I think it's working so far pretty well.
That's good, because I think one of my goals as a resident for many years, you go to planning board meetings or any type of meetings involved with the town, and it's really beneficial to have an open process. You know, that transparency, it's so important because it just it gives people the opportunity to get their questions answered. It relieves a lot of anxiety. It gives people a chance to see both sides and hopefully come to consensus. You know, so it's what's best for the entire community. So I think that open process and keeping that line of communication through a collaborative process is so important. I don't know what the feedback has been on your end, Joe. I mean, when I talk to the planners, they seem to like the process and are growing into it.
Absolutely, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback
Good.
from developers themselves. They're calling, they're saying, you know, it's such a fresh look that they're feeling when they talk to us. When you call up, you know, we're inviting them in, they're coming in, they're not being shut down, they're actually hearing a voice and so on. So it's really worked out very well. I mean, it's a collaborative thing. We need them, they need us.
Right.
So we're working together in partnership. We're trying to make sure it's the best projects for the town. I mean, we have a comprehensive plan. It's supposed to lay the framework as to where the town should be going, and we have to administer that. We have to administer it to move forward to make sure that everybody is going to win in the future. And it's just not going to be the big box nature around it. We're going to have a lot of fresh looks.
See, Paul, one of the important things as far as the planning board is concerned, you know, when we make decisions, some people are going to be happy and some people aren't. But the objective, my objective, is so that people at least understand why we've come to the conclusion that we've come to, and that they understand the process that we've gone, and they understand why we've made those decisions. And I think once you do that, people are more accepting of the way it's being operated. So.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those situations where it's hard to please everyone all the time, and you know, you want to, but sometimes the laws get in the way. Sometimes just the geography of a certain area, or the traffic problems or infrastructure. There's so many other things that come into play that you just, you know, you can only do what's best. But by having an open process and by exhausting all possibilities and coming to what consensus as to what you think is best, you know, that's the best job that you could possibly do. So I think all in all, we'll all benefit by continuing with that collaborative process and keeping things open, and not be afraid to look at other options if it's something that, you know, that's doable. One of the things, I get a lot of questions too on the comprehensive plan, since it's you know, fairly new. It was a long process putting it together. Any particular strengths or weaknesses that you've experienced to date, you know, working with the plan?
I don't know if I'd so much say there's, you know, strengths or weaknesses. Again, it's laid the framework out as to where, you know, we should be looking towards. They've set some goals. I think you and I were in a meeting once, and you even mentioned, based on your history in teaching, you know, you capitalize on the strengths, and those weaknesses will go away. And that's one of the things I'm looking at as to what did the framework lay out. I know one of the things they talked about as far as a goal in the comprehensive plan was collaboration amongst the communities. And already, since we've been talking with the local communities on a weekly, you know, bi-weekly basis, we're starting to see the village of Manans and the city of Waterville take an active role in that gateway coming into the town of Colonie. We've discussed, you know, getting together again and looking at kind of our design standards, but yet let them handle the ball moving forward. We talked about collaborative application to the state to receive additional funding. And given our financial situation, this will be a wonderful thing to offset that, that we could work collaboratively. And anytime you have local municipalities, 2 or 3 working together, that application rises to the top. And certainly we're looking at the West Albany area as another collaborative exchange. We're talking to the city of Cohoes. So the open hand now, or the open government, I guess, is starting to work to our benefit.
And I think you know, that the partnerships with our local, our neighboring municipalities, it's long overdue. One of the things we have to look at is, as we move forward as a community, we have to be able to afford all of our needs. And just as everything else has gotten more global, our way of looking at our government also has to move in that direction. And we certainly want to maintain our own identity. We all want that. But the bottom line is that there's some really good things that can come from working with our neighbors that benefit both communities or all communities involved. One recent project that I was involved with, and I know you know about it as well, and that's partnering up with the Watervliet Arsenal, and working with the Army to try to get the funds to come through. But I mean, this is a big project in an area that is just kind of dormant in some ways, and it helps to preserve jobs that are already there. It will bring in a lot of new jobs, high-tech jobs, which people are looking for. And there are already technology companies that want to come here. The location, again, is great. But you need the partnership, and you need the cooperation with the federal government and those kinds of things to make it work. So you get the opportunity also as an elected official. I get to work with our congressman and our senator and things like that. So you get to take it to different levels and try to get it to work to everyone's benefit. And again, as you mentioned, working collaboratively with Manans and with Cohoes and with Watervliet. These are all things that benefit all of us in the end. So I'm happy we're moving in that
Absolutely.
direction.
And I think everything that's happening down the Arsenal, I mean, we'll start to see some benefit as well. I know Mayor Manning's going to be, pushing that item forward. I know he's actually going down to Washington, I think, to talk about that next week. But again, just think of the housing needs for these paying jobs to come in. I think that'll be an opportunity once again for the town to see, because Watervliet only has so much housing stock, and where's the next closest place, and that's the town of Colonie.
Right.
Well, in relation to the comprehensive plan that we've been talking about, the town is made up of so many unique neighborhoods. And each of the neighborhoods almost has different needs. I mean, you go into West Albany, you go into the Rosellaville area along Route 5, then you go down to Maplewood. Well, the needs of that community, which is already highly developed, and the aging infrastructure are certainly different from the needs of along Route 9, say the Bout area, and maybe up to the western part of the town around the Pine Bush area and the Maywood area. So that's a challenge for the comprehensive plan to try to adopt it to each of the different areas and neighborhoods of the town.
Yes, it is. We are a town that's quite built up, and it is difficult when you look at certain projects. It's not that you can just go into all open land and just do what you need to do. We don't have that luxury anymore. But what you can do is, again, you get creative, and there are a lot of new opportunities out there. So they have to adapt to the existing situation and build into that. And we're going to see that with the Route 7 project for the new bridge at Exit 6. That's going to be a very long, lasting project, but in the end, it's going to be a benefit to the area. And it's one of those things that's necessary, because we have to have a safe bridge going on to the Northway, and we have to be able to relieve some of the traffic congestion. So again, you've got that area there that's all built up, and you've got major construction that's got to take place in that one little area there. So I believe they're going to do that in phases.
They
Joe?
are. There's going to be 3 phases. I understand it to be taking us from, I think it's 2008, the fall of 2008, I believe it was, to hopefully dedication somewhere at the end of 2010 to 2011. But what's interesting about that whole Route 7 corridor, as I started to read it, as I never had before, I never realized how vast it was, that study. It came from Vly Road in the east all the way to the Latham Circle, and then it actually went 2,000 feet on each side of the center line of Route 7. So it really took in a lot of area and actually tried to, lay out the framework as to what type of intended land uses, development, and development for the future. So.
I think we talked a lot before, Paula, that one of your emphasis was going to be on revitalization of some of the older neighborhoods in the town. And Joe, that's quite a challenge for your department, I think.
It really is. When you start to look at, what are the indicators that you need towards, revitalizing an area. I know the West Albany is one that we're going to be getting into and trying to develop a study there. And when you look at the West Albany area, immediately everybody thinks about is the Tobin. The Tobin building. And that's going to be right next to one of the major gateways coming into that area. But if we put the right thing in that location, everything else will start to come. And you'll start to see things that'll go over into the Sand Creek area or start to build and go up to the Everett Road Exchange area as well. So we got to make sure it's the right plan. We got to make sure it's going to affect everybody and affect everybody in a positive way. I know that's another area that's a collaborative issue. That center line, which I've learned only coming in again, was the center line between the city of Albany and Colonie. Goes right through the building, goes right through the parcel.
That's true.
Very unique situation. But again, collaborative, open government between the two municipalities, I think will make it a great package.
Yeah, and I think that area there brings up a good point with revitalization. We've all talked about the fact that there are some areas throughout the town where there's already existing infrastructure, and there are people that want to come and develop different areas, and we're really encouraging people to come in and revitalize these areas, because it's only going to enhance the beauty of the town, and it's going to bring a lot of these areas, a lot of life to these areas, and it's smart growth. I mean, instead of taking more space and more open land, use what's already there, and you're not only going to beautify the area, but you're doing a good thing for the environment as well. So we look at all those things. I mean, there's so many things going on. We've got the great Pine Bush Preserve and our Pathways program, which is, a lot of people ask about that. Maybe you can just briefly give us a little bit about the Pathways program.
Actually, that's a great segue, because actually this coming Monday, we're having a follow-up to our October 3rd, 2007 meeting, where we invited 60 participants throughout the town to talk about, bicycle and pedestrian needs within the township. And this is actually going to be a reporting and follow-up, and actually an expansion as to what was in the comprehensive plan. So I invite anyone interested in coming out Monday at the crossings at 7 o'clock to hear where we've been, to see where we're going, and hopefully get together.
Okay, so that's
forward.
Monday at the crossings.
Monday at the crossing
7
at
o'clock.
7 p.m.
Okay, and the date is?
March 24th.
March 24th. Okay. All right. I'm not sure if we'll be on before then, but certainly I'm going to be there. That's for sure. So I want to hear all about it. But we're almost out of time. So Jean.
Well, can I just leave you with a funny story?
Sure.
And I tell the story at planning board meetings sometimes, and my board's probably very upset because they hear it a lot. Right after World War II, when my parents, when my father and mother wanted to settle somewhere, they decided in Colonie. And when they were looking for a place to stay, they couldn't find housing, because housing after World War II was very difficult. So my father found a parcel of land. And he went to the bank to get a mortgage on the land, and he was told at the bank at that time there was no piece of property in Colonie worth $5,000, so forget it, right? Well, the piece of property was on Wolf Road. Oh. And so you can see how much the town has progressed and grown since then.
Oh, yes,
so,
yes, and we've got a long way to go, and lots of good things to do.
That's right.
On that note, Jean, thank you very much for being here today. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
And I'm Town Supervisor Paula Mahan. Thank you for tuning in to Colony Connect.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.